Welcome to another episode of Voyages. Voyages is a podcast where I, Gaurav, speak to successful business and technology leaders to share their journey with everyone. Our next guest on the podcast is Sairee Chahal. Sairee is the founder and CEO of SHEROES, a community platform for women. Over 1 million women have been directly benefited, and under Sairee's leadership, SHEROES aims to impact over 100 million women in the next 5 years. She has an MPhil degree from JNU and a PGDBM from IMT Ghaziabad. Welcome to the podcast, Sairee. It's such a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Fantastic. So I think Sairee is synonymous with SHEROES. So let's talk about SHEROES. What is SHEROES and what problem does it solve for working women and perhaps women entrepreneurs?
Right. So I think the simplest way to understand Sheroes is hashtag Women's Internet. I think the fundamental thesis of I think all my work is that hey, we are the internet. I think maybe 1.0, 2.0, and now maybe 3.0 generation. We are entering the crypto age, but the truth is, it is. I think maybe after electricity, it is the single largest. Single largest impact on all our lives, right? We can't even imagine our life, a day without internet. And I think the parallel to that is that we're also a country with a massive gender gap. We're always in the lowest ranking next to Libya and Yemen and so on and so forth. So I think we have a long way to go. And Shiro's is basically an attempt at building a product that puts these two perspectives in mind. And of course, I think we started as a jobs and careers platform, and we're very focused on working women and women in metros. But as we've grown, and as internet in India has grown, and as the India story is playing out, we're basically now an ecosystem for women online. So when women come to Shiro's, they first of all they're entering a women only space, which is a very strong cultural construct, right? I mean, all over the country, we know of women only spaces, and actually, women only spaces are also very strong financial models, so ASHA workers and microfinance and all of that. So, we're a women only space, you can express yourself freely, you can hang out, but you can also look for work. And as the internet evolves, we are also evolving into what's happening into rest of the internet. Everybody's a micro entrepreneur, so Shiros is actually now a community marketplace. Everybody is a maker, creator, micro entrepreneur, nano entrepreneur, and that peer to peer commerce is now happening on Shiros. And of course, we've just set up Mylar Money, which is a neobank for women. So I think if you look at it, your Shiro's ID serves as a one-stop shop for you online. You can hang out, you can create selfies, you can find other women, you can look for legal advice. We run a counseling helpline, but you can also look for work. You can look for remote work. We run a remote work business. You can set up your shop online. You can become an entrepreneur. And then we have these massive partnerships with likes of Google and Unilever, where there is something for you to take away. Like we're just about getting into phase two of our accelerator, where 50,000 rural women entrepreneurs are being accelerated, to increase their incomes and livelihood. So the thesis of Shiro is very simple. When a woman comes to us, she benefits from us directly. And that could mean her identity, her financial identity or emotional identity. That could mean her network. It could mean support. And of course, access to money is like a massive point in our ecosystem. So yeah, that's what Shiro's is, and that's the thesis of all my work.
Sounds awesome. As we all know, Shiro's so definitely a company, a brand which is now very very well known. Ever since I've known you, I think we interacted about 3-4 years ago initially, and I've kind of just even I started googling around and trying to understand what the company does, and just realized how massive it is. I actually did not know that before, but you talked interestingly about the gender disparity or gender gap in India. Sari, what do you think is the main reason for that? Why does it even exist? Why are we so low in the ranking? Any thoughts around that?
So look, we are a patriarchal society, right? So we are patriarchal. We have a lot of conditioning, right? So I mean, there are still homes in this country where women. women pretty much don't have a voice, right? They don't have a voice, they don't have an identity. And I think somewhere along the way, as a country, we haven't invested enough in gender equality, so there are policy frameworks that allow you to bring women up to par. So there are countries who've done very well, Sweden for example, Norway for example, but obviously they are the north star. But there are ways to sort of change this metric, one of which is women in workforce, right? So if you look at today in India, women in workforce is not a policy priority for us. We are a country where you have the skilling ministry and you have the commerce ministry and you have the women's ministry, but none of these ministries are really talking about women in the workplace or women in workforce or women's contribution to the GDP. So we've not had a policy priority. Two, I think uh, we also haven't invested enough in women per se. I mean, like the sole job of women's ministry is still very very fundamental goals of vaccination and malnutrition. I mean, they're important goals, but as a country we don't have the focus on gender equality. For the size of country we should, because what it means is it helps us move our GDP needle. It helps us build a more gender equal society, and of course it's the right thing to do. But and look, I mean, it it the patterns of patriarchal frameworks are hard to break, and whichever room you're sitting in, whether it is the cabinet or whether it is CEO's council or it is somewhere else, these are patterns that are all pervasive. So policy is a big part of it, and of course I think uh, technology is a big mover. At least policy moves slowly, technology can hack it. At least at Sheroes we know that if you build great products, consumers will adopt it. Consumer adoption is one of the biggest mover of any trend. I mean, we can say all we want about renewable energy, but when somebody makes a cool and sexy car like Tesla, it just changes everything, right? So there are approaches to moving the needle. Policy is a big one, and at heart the long term changes still come from policy. But as a technology founder, as a product founder, that's the second option. And of course, I think there's still a lot of work around awareness building, information building, stakeholder engagement. No doubt, that's all important work. But uh, as a country, we still aren't invested enough in. I mean, countries like Bangladesh have gone ahead and changed their entire economic outlook based on how they've invested in women. So uh, it is actually a playbook. And a lot of countries have reaped from this playbook, and it's not just good for the women of that country, it's good for that damn country that takes up this policy intervention or puts it on a policy map. But we're yet to get there.
Yeah, but do you think that we are slowly getting there? Like, do you see any improvements over past few years, or is it like just the same as you probably when you started this venture?
We are to step forward, one step back a little bit. We are very I think we like the idea, but we aren't committed to it enough.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
are uh, we are very very opportunistic about it. We do these things when they work for us, but the moment they get hard, we drop the ball and we run away. So and these things need consistent follow up over a period of time. I mean, these are things that need 5-10 year interventions, and consistent planning, gender budgeting for every decision that's taken. And these are hard sort of things. I mean, there are other things that are right, like the women parliamentary bill that's been waiting. There is equal representation of women at, let's say, panchayat level. These are all important questions, right? But these are also hard questions. They need both political commitment as well as overall commitment. I think the corporate sector is a little aware of these things, but for the might corporate sector has, it it still puts this on a very meager pedestal. Like this. I think people need to start putting their money where their mouth is, and that's not happening. There's a lot of conversations. I've been around. everybody says it's the right thing to do, but it's the same thing. Like, if you want to stop using plastics, you need alternatives. You need to sort of invest in the alternatives. So I think it's the same thing. We are saying that plastic is bad, but we're not investing enough in the alternatives. We are not investing enough in in sort of putting this whole piece in the map. Like, I'll give you an example. I think we were the first company in India to talk about remote work with FlexiMoms. Okay, and obviously 10 years ago, FlexiMoms was it was really outlandish as an idea, but we still sort of got that rolling. And until the pandemic happened, it was still mildly outlandish. It was not. It was basically being perceived as an idea to favor women who wanted remote work and not as an economic idea. And look, here we are, and the world's changed around us. So I think there is still a lot of resistance around change. So whether it is changing behaviors around, let's say, remote work, or parental leave, or things like that, or really sort of making sure that our our vision and our budgets match. I think these are things that are hard to do, but no, we yet not there. We're really actually, given our potential and given our ambition, we're definitely not there.
Yeah, agree. I mean, so definitely, I think this the change is slow, but it's there. I think it will take us several years. Like you said, it's all in the mindset. I think that's, even I believe that it's all in the mindset. It's just that we have to start accepting it as normal. We just have to make sure that we accept, that the women workforce, the women entrepreneurs can do as much contribution as the male equivalent can do. That belief, when it starts coming in, I think everything will just start changing. That's how I kind of personally think about it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So sorry, we know about Sheroes. We've seen the platform, we've seen your work. So all the hows and the whens and the whats are probably sorted out, but what is really missing for me is the why. So what really motivates you to do this? Why did you start this venture? What really motivates and excites you to get, there are hundreds of business problems which entrepreneurs typically think about when they start their ventures. Why did you pick this one?
Right. So look, I think we're all a product of our own experiences, and I'm no different. To me, the women we serve at Heroes are are really the uh, women I know in my life, and the woman I am. I mean, I grew up in small town India. I have there isn't a lot of difference between their lives and my lives, their challenges and my challenges. uh, and I think the only difference is, one, I got a little lucky uh, early on, with early career breaks and insight into building products and the world of technology. But second is also uh, just the courage to say, hey, let's take a stab at this. I mean, these are also opportunities right in front of us. Everything that looks like this massive challenge is also an opportunity. So to me, it is very, very personal. And I think it's also a little bit of Alice in Wonderland, right? The more you do something, the more invested you become. So it is a question of being able to go deep and stay with something. I mean, look, hard problems take years to solve. They are not, they are not a 2-year startup that you just put a seed and then you get an exit at the end of 2 years. uh, doesn't work like that. So if you're going to work on something which is a hard problem, then you got to commit to it and sort of evolve with it. Like in our journey, we've evolved constantly. Every year we are a different company because we are also responding to what's happening. So to me, this is personal, and also I think a little bit of timing, right? Like, we started in a pre-WhatsApp era, pre-Geo era. The number of women online was much smaller, and look at where we are. So it's also maybe the time and place factor. This is a hard problem in India. We're sitting in India today. Like, it wouldn't be very relevant if I was sitting in Berlin, or I was sitting in elsewhere in Seoul or elsewhere, right? So I think it's kind of a time and place, and of course everything everything in my life has kind of led me to it, right? So it's there's a lot of conspiracy behind this, I would say, that universe has been at. And I think that's what it is. And to be honest, like मुझे और कुछ दिखाई नहीं देता. So we all have our blind spots, but this is what I see the most, right? Like I'm able to pluck this out in my own context and work with it and
Yeah,
stay with it long enough without being tired. I think if you're not authentically close to the problem, you will get tired as a founder.
that's true. That's actually very well said. I can relate to it as well personally. So you talked about the product being about your own experiences, and also to some extent about this being personal for you. So and you are also ultimately a woman entrepreneur yourself. So would you like to talk about some of the challenges that you faced as a woman entrepreneur in your journey? What makes it difficult in India to to run a company as a woman entrepreneur? Anything that you would like to share on those lines?
Right. So look, I think as a society we have different standards for men. you know I mean, it may it may get uh, it may get less stark, but as a woman you will always have some things thrown at you for being one. I was talking to an investor yesterday, somebody I really like, and somebody who's rock star. And at this point in time I run two companies, and obviously I do a bunch of things in the ecosystem. So he was like, not everybody can be a Jack or an Elon Musk. So I think we always hold women to different standards. We always will look at women as less capable, and I've seen it play out practically, at every phase of my life. Or the expectation is that women founders need to build businesses with much less capital, or women founders, like we really celebrate when men fail. Have you ever heard a story of women founder failing and it being celebrated? You will never hear it, because we have double standards. So and we have double standards everything, uh, I have I sometimes joke with my senior colleagues who are men to say, like there's still days where I will tell them, why don't you go talk to this guy, because he's an MCP, and he'll respond to you better. He will, so they're still, and I've spent like a lifetime doing this. So can you imagine somebody who doesn't work in the field, is not so sort of, clued in, and is not sort of, all teed up for this environment? It is we have different standards to begin with. And we are like first time women founders, they find it very, very hard to raise funds. If you're not connected to the ecosystem, you're not from the boys club, you didn't go to IIT, or you're practically nobody in the ecosystem, it's a very hard climb for you. And I think whether it is raising money, whether it is, I think, even in a room, like we expect women to do a lot more housekeeping, even in official environments, right? Like, so I think doing follow-ups and organizing takes. So I think there's just a lot of that. These are very uh, unconscious biases, right? Nobody's doing it on purpose. They're just programmed this way, right? That code has been written and fed into them, and it's being sort of passed along, in every version now.
Yeah, and it's surprising. So when did this code actually happen? Who did this programming, and when did it actually go into the DNA? And we'll probably never know. What do you think?
No, we actually know. And the bugs will kill me, but remember, my ability is like so. you know, and of course, I think, look, uh, it is hundreds of years of programming. So it's
That's
not
correct. That's
it's
correct.
not sort of, and it you can even trace it back to the to the primitive age, or so forth. But the truth is, we've uh, I think the industrial age broke it a little bit. But I mean, look, there are countries who have reaped an economic dividend of breaking the gender barrier. When the knowledge and information age came, countries in Scandinavia lapped it up to say, we're going to create a more equal world. Like, incorporating a foreign policy that's more gender equal, incorporating economic policy that's gender equal, and I'm still saying gender equal. I'm not saying in favor of women. I'm saying gender equal. So create more spaces, because what the shackles of patriarchy that grip women also grip men. The burden of being a breadwinner, or the burden of being a certain way. Men don't cry, and men can't take leaves, and men can't go on sabbaticals, or men don't take parental leaves. These are all part of the same programming. So I think it's there are, and there is enough evidence that breaking this pattern and rewriting this code has enough merit. It has economic merit, it has societal merit. It creates richer, happier societies. So why are we not doing it enough?
So then, and also one of the interesting thought processes is that you talk about a few countries which have done that, and they have seen the economic benefits of this change. So does it automatically mean that Sairee, that Sheroes will eventually, or is it already an international platform? Do you see an audience, a big audience, perhaps excluding those 5-10% countries, as also potential, potential areas where Sheroes can grow?
Yeah. Actually, just before the pandemic happened, we almost did a pilot in Japan. Okay,
Oh, why not?
Japan's another one of those countries where the gender gap between men and women is massive. So you will rarely find a woman CEO in the Japanese corporate structures.
I
You
see.
will rarely find women investors. Uh, so yes, I think, look, the platform, the product serves a core purpose, but it also uh, has an accompanying philosophy behind it, right? So you can really take it to any market where that women would benefit from it, because the upside somebody in a gender equal society sees is far more than, let's say, an upside in a more fairer world. Maybe the product is very different in a more sort of gender equal society. But I mean, look, it kind of is valid in a lot of countries: Japan, Indonesia, Vietnam, all of Middle East, all of South Asia. So I think LATAM, for that matter, very very similar dynamic. Yeah, and I think if you look at some of the published data from multilateral agencies, this is really one of the largest challenges. Maybe after environment, gender gap is the largest challenge facing us as humanity today.
Absolutely. And what do men think of Sheroes? That's an interesting question, perhaps. So women will definitely appreciate it, but what about men?
Well, I have to tell you, there are two kinds of men. So men who are allies, and we have some wonderful, wonderful allies, and we are here because they get this. They get this big picture, and they get the vision. So clearly, I think that pool is fantastic, and they're partners, stakeholders, allies. But at the same time, as you know, internet's equally trolly and abusive and spammy. So I want to throw a statistic at you. Uh, so Shiros is about today, as we speak today, about 24 million women across our network, across all the properties that we own. But in this process, so because we're a women only space, we run machine learning algorithm to make sure men don't enter. We have enough investment in spam and abuse control, and giving user rights to make sure that the platform stays safe. As we speak, we have banned at least 6 million men from entering the platform. So it tells you a lot more about what's going on out there. I think, yeah, I think like one of the constant challenges we have as a team is every time we ban somebody, they will go and write a poor review on the Play Store, right? Or they will try to hack into the ecosystem. But yeah, I guess these are parts of building this narrative.
Absolutely. And among those 6 million, what if there were some allies as well?
No, there aren't any allies there. We have checked. We have
Okay.
enough checks and balances in place. Uh,
Okay. Got
yeah.
it. So Sairee, so one of the things that I mean, I have this one belief of this one quote that I've read often, and I kind of believe in it, which is that you should be the change that you want to see, right? And so just want to understand from your perspective, in an ideal world, what does Shiro's want to be? What is the big change in the world that Sairee wants to see?
Right. Like I think as a startup also, right? Like not just us. It's a good thing if your problems keep changing, right? If your problems keep evolving, you know. So like it makes me really happy to see that remote work is kind of solved for now, right? Like, or let's say the internet became far safer, then we would have an opportunity to take a shot at other challenges, right? But look, I think from where we stand, one, we want to provide enough surface area for a large number of women to find their space, you know, to find their emotional space and their financial space. And today, you know, we reach 24 million women. Tomorrow, we hope that this becomes, you know, 200 million and half a billion or whatever that number is. So definitely increasing our surface area to make sure some of these, you know, some of these engines keep rolling. So whether it is entrepreneurs, whether it is, you know, making sure there's something at the end of the tunnel. But as a product and a platform, you know, you got to evolve every few quarters. After every 18 months, you got to sort of go back to the drawing board and, you know, do something with your product that makes it relevant, right? So as a product, one will keep evolving, but as a mission, as our vision, I think that's very clear that there is still a large opportunity to solve in the space of women's internet, you know, to increase the surface area of women's internet. That's a big vision, right? And at some point, you know, if the world was an ideal place, we wouldn't be here, and that would be nice. We would take a step at building something else, right? But it isn't, right? So we got to keep at it and keep, you know, keep building things. So, and there are various ways to the same problem, right? Like I've been a founder most of my life, and I've always felt that, hey, need to do something with women founders. Last 3 years I've been running something called Saturdays with Sairee. That's why you see me in office on a Saturday, because this is my day to catch up with the community and our ecosystem. And I've spoken to so many women founders, and the first check is very, very hard, right? So as we speak, have just set up Sheroes, something called Sheroes Capital, which is basically to help women get to their first check. You know, the hardest check ever, right? So there are various ways to solve a problem. So sometimes it's capital, sometimes it's support, sometimes it's employment, sometimes it's entrepreneurship, sometimes it's just a cool, fun place to like chill, right? So you know, that will keep evolving. What we do will keep evolving. Why we do is probably the same.
Absolutely. It's very interesting thought that the ideal world there would be no Sheroes because it wouldn't have been required. That is such an amazing way to put it. Actually, we talked also, noticed about your new venture, Mylar Money, which was, I think, previously called Sheroes Money.
Yeah.
So if you can just talk a little bit about that, just how, what additional, what are the additional benefits that you probably plan to offer the women community with this new venture,
Right.
and why is it a separate venture? Why not just a part of the Sheroes platform? That will be also very interesting to know.
Yes, I think two things. One, it's called Mylar Money because I think that's the word everyone identifies with. So fewer women know Sheroes, but almost every woman out there in India knows Mylar, right? There is a certain referenceability. So we did start as Sheroes Money, but as we went, through talking to more and more users, and as we sort of ran some of our early pilots, we were very clear. One, the scope and scale of this is massive. So we didn't want to sort of dwarf it. Uh, with making sure that it's only tied to shares. So sometimes you have to seed it and let the idea grow and not shadow it too much. So that's fun. What are we building? We're basically building a digital bank for women. We are building one a community space. So we all know women have done massively well in community microfinance setups. Whether it's chit funds or kitty parties or whether it's self-help groups, those are social spaces that become money spaces, but we haven't yet seen a digital version of that, right? So think of it as a digital version of a community where women come for all things that impact their money decisions, and money is a trigger, right? Money is embedded in our life in a major way, whether it is access to your first income, whether it is buying your first laptop, your first scooty, your own house, sending your child to college, or learning a new skill. Money has a huge role to play. So what are we doing? We're basically setting up a bank that's very cognizant of the lives and needs of women. And who are these women? So of course there are women like me who perhaps Citibank will be happy to serve, And then there are women that maybe are served by microfinance today. But if you look at the 200 million women who came online today, who we call creators and resellers and micro entrepreneurs and nano entrepreneurs, or people who are setting up a business on WhatsApp, or people, I mean, you look around on the internet, right? Everybody's an entrepreneur, everybody's selling something, everybody's trying to get to some form of social mobility. So these are the women we serve. These are women who are who are the aspiring women of India. So like if I was to give you example, think of Sridevi in English to English, right? I mean, here's a woman who's perfectly there, right? But just imagine her walking into a bank and asking for a loan. Like, just imagine that experience, right? We know that it's going to be suboptimal. Or think of, Dolly Auntie from Wiki Donor, right? So, I mean, just imagine Dolly Auntie being offered like a credit card from Citibank. Tough shot, right? So what I'm saying is that there are women all around us, in your society, the woman who irons your clothes, the woman who runs a next door beauty parlor, the woman who comes home to massage, the woman who delivers your food, the woman who's perhaps your child's tutor. These are all working women, but they are not part of the corporate strata, which means they don't have the same financial footprint. And then there are women who who are probably invisible in their own homes, right? We all know a neighborhood auntie who does dabba, right? We all know of somebody who makes chocolate. We all know a home baker who runs a small business, but she wants to scale. India is sitting at the cusp of an entrepreneurial revolution, but all these entrepreneurs need capital, and they don't need venture capital. They need capital to buy their next baking machine and their next yoga studio and things like that, right? Who's going to finance that, right? So I think Mylar Money is just set up for that. So access to loans, access to financial products, but more so access to other women who are exactly on the same journey. Let's say I took a loan to build a new beauty parlor. I bought these machines, and I bought these fancy lights. It would be nice to talk to another woman who can tell me which is a good brand to buy, how to price this, what are the things to keep in mind when setting up a beauty parlor, right? And that's what communities do for you, right? So that's exactly what we're doing with Myla Money. We're thinking of it as a digital bank for women, and there are a lot of women out there who are not served by any segment of fintech or banking today. So that's the audience, and that's what we're doing. We're excited about it because it is it it is potentially a very large play. It's also a very high impact play. Money makes a real difference in lives of women, so why not?
Absolutely, sounds super good, and very excited to see this roll out and perhaps start impacting lives of women, just as Shiro's has done in the past. Fantastic. And Sairee, perhaps my last question on a personal note, what excites you apart from Shiro's? As so for example, what does Sairee do on a Sunday?
Oh yes. So the other love of my life is yoga. I mean, if
Okay.
like one of my ambitions is to certify myself as a yoga teacher. I don't know God when will that happen, but hopefully someday. And and the other thing, of course, I love reading. I mean, if I had my way, I would sort of, like read like. I mean, I still read a fair bit, but I would like to read a lot more. And Yeah, I guess I do have a little bit of a Slavophile in me. I speak Russian. I follow that part of the world very closely. I still enjoy that nostalgia and a little bit of that. Like, for example, every Saturday there's a handle called the Sayevsky Saturday. So like, I follow that religiously. And just something that I'm curious about. I love that whole era and that whole literature and stuff. So that's something I really love. Yeah, I mean, not a lot beyond work, to be honest, but small little things that make me happy.
Super. I think that sounds so cool. The yoga and the reading, I think just adds to a lot of more perspective. I think just keeps you fit and also gives you a lot more perspective in life as well. I think I mean, I'm not a big yoga fan, but I read a lot as well personally. So yeah, so can relate to that. Fantastic. So Sari, that's pretty much it for today's episode. Thanks a lot for spending out an hour or so. I know it's a busy schedule. I can understand. Even with Saturdays, you have a lot of commitments, but thanks a lot for spending this time with us. And it's such a pleasure, such a joy for us to have you on the show. I'm sure a lot of our readers, a lot of our listeners will be tremendously influenced, tremendously encouraged by your journey, and hopefully make a big impact in the days to come.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, Sari. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.